The rain came down in sheets that November morning. Officer Thomas Wright had been standing guard at the eastern gate of the palace for nearly 4 hours. His boots were soaked. His uniform clung to his shoulders, but he didn't move. He never moved. That was the job. The tourists had stopped coming an hour ago. The streets were empty, just rain, fog, and the distant sound of traffic. Thomas stared straight ahead the way he'd been trained, eyes forward, mind sharp. Nothing unusual ever happened on the morning shift. Until he saw her at first, it was just a shape in the fog. A woman walking slowly toward the gate. She wore a long, dark coat pulled tight around her body. A scarf covered most of her face. Her head was down like she didn't want to be seen. Thomas didn't react. People walked past the gates every day. Curious tourists, lost travelers, photographers hoping for a shot. But something about this woman felt different, the way she moved. Slow, hesitant, like she was afraid. She stopped about 10 feet from the gate. Just stood there, staring. Thomas could feel her eyes on him now. He kept his gaze forward, but his pulse quickened. Years of training told him to stay still. But instinct told him something was wrong. The woman took a step closer, then another. Her hand rose slowly and pulled the scarf away from her face. Thomas felt his breath catch. It was her, Meghan, the Duchess, former royal. The woman the entire world had been talking about for years. She looked different, thinner, tired. Her eyes were red, like she'd been crying. But it was definitely her. Before we go any further, if you're enjoying this story, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss another incredible true story like this one. Now, back to what happened next. Thomas didn't know what to do. Protocol said he couldn't leave his post. Protocol said he couldn't speak unless spoken to, but this wasn't in any manual. This was Meghan, standing alone, in the rain. Outside the palace, she looked at him. Really looked at him. Her lips trembled. She opened her mouth like she wanted to say something, but no words came out. Tears began rolling down her cheeks, mixing with the rain. Thomas broke protocol. He took one small step forward. "Ma'am," he said quietly. "Are you all right?" Meghan shook her head. Slowly, her whole body seemed to tremble. She wrapped her arms around herself, holding on like she might fall apart. Her voice was barely a whisper. I needed to see it. One more time. Thomas glanced around. The street was still empty. No cameras, no reporters, no security detail. She was completely alone. That didn't make sense. Someone like her didn't just walk around London alone. Especially not here. Especially not now. "Ma'am, do you need me to call someone?" Thomas asked, keeping his voice calm. Professional. But inside, his mind was racing. Meghan looked up at the palace gates, the gold bars, the stone walls. The place she once called home. Her face twisted with pain. Raw, unfiltered pain. "They won't let me in," she whispered. Thomas felt something tighten in his chest. He'd been trained to protect the palace, to keep people out. But standing here, watching this woman cry in the rain, he didn't feel like a guard. He felt human. "Ma'am, I tried calling," she said, her voice breaking. "I tried everything, but they won't answer. They won't let me." She couldn't finish. Her shoulders shook as silent sobs overtook her. Thomas knew he had seconds to make a decision that could cost him his career, or save someone who desperately needed help. Thomas reached for his radio. His hand hovered over it. One call and supervisors would arrive. Security would swarm the area. Meghan would be escorted away. The cameras would appear out of nowhere. The media storm would be instant. But something stopped him. Maybe it was the look in her eyes, the absolute desperation. Or maybe it was the way she stood there, soaked and shaking, looking more vulnerable than any person he'd ever seen. He pulled his hand back. "Ma'am," he said carefully, "I can't let you through this gate. But I can call someone inside, someone who might be able to help." Meghan looked at him. Hope flickered across her face for just a second before fading again. "They won't come," she said. "I know they won't." "Let me try," Thomas said. She hesitated, then nodded so slightly he almost missed it. Thomas turned his back to the street and spoke quietly into his radio. This is Eastgate. I need a supervisor. Now, tell them it's urgent, but keep it quiet. The voice on the other end crackled back. What's the situation? Thomas glanced over his shoulder at Meghan. She was staring at the palace again, tears still streaming down her face. Just send someone, Thomas said. Please. 3 minutes later, Sergeant Patricia Cole arrived. She was in her 50s, with sharp eyes and a nonsense attitude. She'd worked palace security for 23 years. Nothing rattled her, until she saw who was standing at the gate. Patricia's eyes widened. She walked slowly toward Meghan, keeping her movements calm and controlled. Your Grace, she said softly. It was the formal title, even though Meghan no longer officially held it. Old habits? Meghan turned. Her face crumpled when she saw Patricia. I'm sorry, she whispered. I shouldn't have come. I didn't know where else to go. Patricia looked at Thomas, then back at Meghan. Years of protocol battled with human compassion in her expression. Finally, she spoke. What's happened? Meghan's hands shook as she tried to speak. It's Archie, she finally said. He's sick, really sick. And I need to speak to them. I need them to know. The words hung in the cold air. Thomas felt his stomach drop. Archie, her son. The little boy the world had watched grow up in photos and rare public appearances. Patricia's face softened immediately. How sick? The doctors don't know yet, Meghan said, her voice breaking. They're running tests, but they said I should prepare myself, that I should contact family. Da. She laughed bitterly, a horrible sound that was more pain than humor. But how do you contact family that won't speak to you? Patricia reached out slowly and touched Meghan's arm. Come inside, she said. Out of the rain. Let me make some calls. They won't let me try, Patricia said firmly. Please. Meghan looked at the palace gates. Fear and hope warred in her expression. Finally, she nodded. Patricia looked at Thomas. Open the side door. And not a word of this to anyone? Understood? Yes, ma'am, Thomas said. He moved to the small pedestrian gate beside the main entrance. His hands were steady, but his heart pounded. This could end his career. Letting someone in without proper authorization, without clearance, without going through channels. But when he looked at Meghan's face, he knew he'd make the same choice again. The gate clicked open. Patricia guided Meghan through, one hand on her shoulder. Protective. Gentle. Thomas closed the gate behind them and returned to his post. The street was still empty. The rain still fell. To anyone passing by, nothing had happened. Just another quiet morning at the palace. But inside, Thomas's radio suddenly came alive. All units, be advised. Unauthorized entry at Eastgate. Lock down. The Patricia's voice cut through. Belay that order, says Sergeant Cole. Situation is under control. Repeat, under control. Silence. Then a different voice. Higher authority, Sergeant Cole, explain yourself. Patricia didn't respond right away. When she did, her voice was calm but left no room for argument. I'm bringing someone in who needs help. Medical situation involving a child. Family matter. Keep it quiet and get me a secure room. Now. Another pause. Longer this time. Understood, the voice finally said. But this goes upstairs. Immediately. I'm counting on it, Patricia replied. Thomas stood at his post, staring straight ahead. But his mind was inside those walls. What was happening in there? Would they help her, or would they turn her away? The rain continued to fall. And somewhere inside the palace, decisions were being made that would change everything. Inside the palace, Patricia led Meghan down a narrow corridor. Not the grand halls tourists saw in photographs. These were the working passages, plain walls, fluorescent lights. The real skeleton of the building. Meghan walked like she was in a dream, or a nightmare. Her wet shoes squeaked against the polished floor. Her hands still trembled. Patricia opened a door to a small private room, simple furniture, table, chairs, a phone on the wall. Nothing royal about it, just functional. Sit, Patricia said gently. I'll get you some tea and a towel. I don't need sit, Patricia repeated. Firmer this time. You look like you're about to collapse. Meghan said.
Ow.
She pulled her coat tighter around herself, even though the room was warm. She couldn't seem to stop shaking. Patricia left and returned 2 minutes later with a towel and a steaming cup of tea. She set both on the table and sat down across from Meghan. "Tell me exactly what happened," Patricia said. "Everything." Meghan wrapped her hands around the cup. The warmth helped a little. "Archie woke up 3 days ago with a fever," she began. "We thought it was just a cold, but it got worse, much worse. He couldn't breathe properly. He was so weak." Her voice cracked. She took a breath and continued. "We took him to the hospital. They ran tests, blood work, scans, everything. And yesterday the doctor called us into his office. He said they found something in his blood. They don't know what it is yet, but it's serious." Patricia leaned forward. "What did they say exactly?" "They said the next 48 hours are critical," Meghan whispered. "They said we should be prepared for anything, that we should have family close." She looked up at Patricia, her eyes red and exhausted. "I tried calling. I sent messages, emails. I even tried reaching out through mutual friends, but no one answered. No one." Patricia's jaw tightened. She'd worked in the palace long enough to know how things worked, how walls got built, how silence became a weapon. "And Harry?" Patricia asked carefully. "He's with Archie," Meghan said. "At the hospital. He didn't want me to come here. He said it would only make things worse. But I couldn't just sit there. I needed to try. One more time. I know how this looks. I know people think I walked away, that I chose this. But that little boy in that hospital bed didn't choose anything. He's just a child, and he's sick. And his grandparents won't even." She couldn't finish. Her shoulders shook with silent sobs. Patricia stood and picked up the phone on the wall. She dialed a number from memory. It rang twice before someone answered. "This is Sergeant Cole," she said, her voice all business now. "I need you to get a message to the private secretary immediately. Tell him we have a family emergency situation. Medical, involving a child. And yes, I know who I'm calling about." She listened for a moment. Her expression hardened. "I don't care what the protocol is. Get someone down here now, or I'm walking up there myself. You have 5 minutes." She hung up. Meghan looked at her with something like disbelief. "You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did," Patricia said simply. She sat back down. "I have 3 grandchildren. If one of them was in a hospital and I couldn't reach them, I'd tear down walls to get there. Family's family." They sat in silence. The clock on the wall ticked steadily. Each second felt like an hour. 4 minutes later, the door opened. A man in a dark suit stepped inside. He was young, maybe 30. His expression was carefully neutral, but his eyes flickered with something. Concern? Curiosity? It was hard to tell. "I'm Edward Thornton," he said. "I work for the private secretary's office. I understand there's a situation." Again stood. She looked like she might fall over, but she stood. "My son is in the hospital," she said, her voice stronger now. "He's very sick, and I need to speak to his grandparents. I need them to know." Edward's expression didn't change. "I understand. But you must know this is highly irregular. There are channels? Channels?" Meghan's voice rose. "My son might be dying, and you want to talk about channels?" Edward hesitated. For just a second, the professional mask slipped. He was young. Too young to have dealt with something like this before. "I'll relay the message," he said quietly. "But I can't promise. I'm not asking for promises," Meghan said. "I'm asking for basic human decency. A phone call. 5 minutes. That's all." Edward nodded slowly. "Wait here." He left the room. Patricia reached out and squeezed Meghan's hand. "You did the right thing," she said. "Coming here? Speaking up. That took courage." Meghan sank back into her chair. "Or stupidity," she whispered. "Sometimes they're the same thing," Patricia said. They waited. 10 minutes. Then 20. The tea went cold. The rain outside grew heavier, drumming against windows somewhere in the distance. Finally, the door opened again. But this time, it wasn't Edward who walked in. It was William. He stood in the doorway. still wearing a formal jacket from whatever meeting he'd been pulled from. His face was hard to read. Not angry. Not welcoming, just ... Guarded. Meghan stood slowly. She looked like she might collapse, but she held herself together, barely. "William," she said softly. He didn't respond right away. His eyes moved over her, taking in the wet coat, the exhausted face, the trembling hands. Finally, he stepped inside and closed the door behind him. Patricia quietly excused herself, slipping out before either of them could protest. They were alone. The silence stretched between them like a canyon. Years of hurt, accusations, media storms, family fractures, all of it hung in the air, unspoken but heavy. "They said Archie's sick," William finally said. His voice was controlled. "Careful." "Yes," Meghan said. She could barely get the word out. "How sick?" she told him. Everything the doctors had said, the tests, the uncertainty, the 48-hour window. As she spoke, she watched his face for any reaction, any sign that he cared, that the anger and distance could be put aside for just a moment. William's jaw tightened. His hands clenched at his sides. But his eyes showed something. Pain. Real. Deep pain. "Why didn't Harry call?" he asked quietly. "He tried," Meghan said. "We both did." No one answered. William looked away. "There are reasons I know the reasons," Meghan cut him off, her voice sharp now. "I know all the reasons. The interviews. The things we said. The things that were said about us. I know." She stepped closer to him. "But William, he's your nephew. He's a little boy. And he's in a hospital bed. And he's scared. He's asking for his grandfather and his uncle. And I don't know what to tell him anymore." Her voice broke completely. "I don't know how to explain to a 5-year-old why his family won't come." William turned back to face her. For the first time since entering, his mask cracked. His eyes glistened. "You think this is easy for us?" he asked, his voice rough. "You think we wanted any of this?" "No," Meghan said. "I know you didn't. None of us did. But it happened, and we can't change it. But we can change this. Right now. Today." William shook his head. "It's not that simple." "It is exactly that simple," Meghan said, her voice rising. "A child is sick. Family should be there. Everything else is just ... noise." "That noise destroyed us," William said. "What you both said? On television? To the world? You have no idea what it did to my family. To my father. To my grandmother before she..." He stopped himself, took a breath. Meghan's eyes filled with tears again. "I know," she whispered. "I know we hurt people. I know things were said that can't be unsaid. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But William, please. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking for reconciliation. I'm just asking for one phone call. For Archie." William stood frozen. The battle raged across his face. Duty versus compassion. Protocol versus family. Years of pain versus a sick child. "Where's Harry?" he finally asked. "At the hospital. St. Mary's. In the private ward." William pulled out his phone. He stared at it for a long moment. His thumb hovered over the screen. Then he looked up at Meghan. "If I do this," he said slowly, "it doesn't fix everything. You understand that?" "I understand," Meghan said. "And there will be questions. From everyone. The family. The press. Everyone. I understand." William nodded once. Then he pressed the call button and raised the phone to his ear. Meghan held her breath. It rang 3 times. Then a familiar voice answered. Rough? Exhausted? "Harry? Hello?" William closed his eyes briefly. "It's me," he said. "I heard about Archie." There was silence on the other end. "Then how did you Meghan's here?" William said simply. "At the palace?" Another pause. Longer this time. "Is she okay?" William looked at Meghan. She was crying openly now, not even trying to hide it. "She's here," he said. and we're talking. How's Archie? Harry's voice trembled. Not good. They moved him to intensive care an hour ago. His breathing got worse. They have him on oxygen now. William's face went pale. What do the doctors say? They're still running tests. But William... ... Harry's voice broke completely. I'm scared. I'm really scared. William's hand tightened around the phone. Years of distance. Years of hurt. All of it seemed to shrink in that moment. I'm coming, he said. The words came out before he could stop them. Give me the room number. I'm coming right now. William, you don't have to room number, Harry? Harry gave it to him. I'll be there in 20 minutes, William said. And Harry? We'll figure this out, together. Ended the call and looked at Meghan. Something had shifted in his expression. The walls weren't gone, but they'd cracked. Just enough. I have to go, he said. But you should stay here. Dry off. Eat something. Patricia will take care of you. I should go back to the hospital, Meghan said. Not yet, William said firmly. Give me some time. Let me talk to Harry first. Alone. Meghan wanted to argue, but she nodded. Okay. William walked to the door, then stopped. Without turning around, he said, For what it's worth, you were right to come. About that, at least. Then he was gone. Patricia returned moments after William left. She took one look at Meghan's face and knew something had changed. He's going to the hospital, she said. Not a question. A statement. Meghan nodded, unable to speak. Patricia guided her to sit down again. That's good, she said gently. That's very good. I don't know if it is, Meghan whispered. What if it makes things worse? What if Harry's angry that I came here? Harry will understand, Patricia said. He's a father. He'd do anything for his son, and so would you. That's why you're here. Meghan buried her face in her hands. The adrenaline that had carried her through the last hour was draining away, leaving her hollow and exhausted. I was so scared, she said. Walking up to those gates, I thought they'd turn me away immediately. Or worse, that they'd call the press. Make a spectacle of it. Guard at the gate, Patricia said. Officer Wright. He could have done that. Protocol said he should have, but he didn't. He saw someone who needed help, and he chose compassion. That matters. Meghan looked up. I need to thank him, later Patricia said. Right now, you need to rest. When's the last time you slept? I don't know. 2 days ago? Maybe 3. Patricia shook her head. Come on, there's a restroom down the hall. Lie down for an hour. I'll wake you if anything happens. I can't just you can and you will, Patricia said firmly. You're no good to anyone if you collapse. And Archie needs you strong. Meghan wanted to argue, but her body betrayed her. She was so tired, so completely exhausted. She let Patricia lead her to a small room with a couch. The moment she lay down, her eyes closed. She didn't dream. She just fell into darkness. Meanwhile, across London, William arrived at St. Mary's Hospital. He'd left the palace without his security detail. Without calling ahead, without thinking about protocols or procedures or what this would mean, he just went, Nurse recognized him immediately in the corridor. Her eyes went wide, but William put a finger to his lips. I'm just visiting family, he said quietly. Please. The nurse nodded, speechless, and pointed him to the intensive care unit. William found the room. Room 417. He stood outside for a moment, his hand on the door handle. On the other side was his brother, his nephew, a chasm of hurt that had felt too wide to cross. He opened the door. Harry sat beside a hospital bed. He looked like he'd aged 10 years. His hair was a mess. His clothes wrinkled. His eyes red from crying. When he saw William, he froze. The brothers stared at each other. Neither spoke. Then William's eyes moved to the bed. To Archie, the little boy looked so small, so fragile. Oxygen tubes in his nose, monitors beeping steadily, his face pale against the white pillow. Something broke inside William. All the anger, all the hurt, all the carefully constructed walls. They crumbled. He walked to the bed and looked down at his nephew. "Hey, little man," he whispered. Archie's eyes fluttered open. They were glassy with fever, but he focused on William's face. "Uncle Will?" His voice was so weak. William's throat tightened. "Yeah, it's me." "I missed you," Archie whispered. That was it. William's control shattered completely. Tears spilled down his cheeks. "I missed you too, buddy. So much." He looked at Harry. His brother was crying openly now, not even trying to hide it. They stood on opposite sides of the bed, years of distance between them, with this sick little boy as the bridge. "William, Harry started. "Don't," William said quietly. "Not now. Right now, we're just uncles. Just family. The rest can wait." Harry nodded, unable to speak. William pulled a chair close to the bed and sat down. He took Archie's small hand in his. "You're going to be okay," he said, though he had no way of knowing if that was true. "You're strong. Like your dad." "And your mom?" Archie smiled weakly. "Mummy went to see you." "I know," William said. "She loves you very much. She wanted to make sure we knew you needed us. Are you staying?" Archie asked. William looked at Harry, then back at Archie. "Yeah," he said. "I'm staying." For the next 2 hours, William sat beside that hospital bed. He told Archie stories. About when Harry was little, about their own childhood, about the trouble they used to get into. Archie laughed weakly at some parts. Harry laughed too, despite everything. And slowly, the gap between the brothers began to feel less impossible. A doctor came in to check on Archie. She looked startled to see William there, but said nothing. She reviewed the monitors, made some notes, and left. After she was gone, Harry finally spoke. "You didn't have to come." "Yes, I did," William said simply. "But everything that's happened is still there," William said. "I'm not pretending it's not. But Harry, he's 5 years old, and he's sick, and I'm his uncle. That matters more than anything else right now." Harry's eyes filled with tears again. "Thank you," he whispered. "You have no idea what this means." William nodded. He didn't trust himself to speak. They sat in silence, both watching Archie sleep. The monitors beeped steadily. The rain continued outside, softer now, and somewhere in the palace. Meghan woke from her brief sleep to find Patricia standing in the doorway with a phone. "It's Harry," Patricia said quietly, holding out the phone. Meghan's heart jumped. She took the phone with trembling hands. "Harry." "He's here," Harry said. His voice was thick with emotion. "William's here. He's been here for 2 hours. He's sitting with Archie right now." Meghan covered her mouth with her hand. Fresh tears spilled down her face. "Is Archie okay?" "He's stable," Harry said. "The doctors say the next few hours are still critical, but he's stable." "And Meg?" He smiled when he saw William. He actually smiled. Meghan sobbed into the phone. Relief, gratitude, exhaustion. It all poured out at once. "You did this," Harry said softly. "I know I told you not to go. I thought it would make everything worse. But you were right. You were so right." "I just needed them to know," Meghan whispered. "I needed them to have the chance." "I love you," Harry said. "Come back when you're ready. We're all here. Waiting for you. I'll be there soon," Meghan said. She ended the call and handed the phone back to Patricia. For a long moment, she just sat there, letting herself feel everything. The fear, the hope, the fragile possibility that maybe, just maybe, things could begin to heal. Patricia squeezed her shoulder. "You did good," she said simply. "Can I thank Officer Wright before I go?" Meghan asked, of course. They walked back through the corridors to the east gate. Thomas was still at his post, standing in the rain. When he saw them approaching, he remained perfectly still, professional. But his eyes flickered with concern. Patricia stepped aside, giving them space. Meghan walked up to the gate. Thomas looked at her properly now. No need to pretend he hadn't seen her before. "Thank you," Meghan said quietly. "You didn't have to help me. You could have followed protocol. But you didn't. And because of that, my son has his uncle with him right now. Because of you, there's hope that maybe this family can start to heal. Thomas felt his throat tighten. He'd stood at this post for 3 years. He'd seen thousands of people walk past. Important people, celebrities, tourists, but none of them had ever thanked him like this. Like he mattered. "I just did what felt right, ma'am," he said quietly. "It's more than most people do," Meghan said. She reached through the gate and squeezed his hand briefly. "Thank you, truly." The car pulled up to the curb. Patricia had arranged transport back to the hospital. Meghan turned to leave, then paused. "Officer Wright," she said. "What you did today, ... It reminded me that there are still good people in the world. People who choose compassion over rules. Thank you for being one of them." Then she was gone, disappearing into the car. Thomas returned to his post. The rain had finally stopped. Weak sunlight broke through the clouds. He stood there, staring straight ahead the way he'd been trained. But inside, something had changed. He'd always thought his job was about protecting the palace, keeping people out, following orders. But today, he'd learned it could be something else too. It could be about recognizing when someone needed help, when compassion mattered more than protocol. Later that afternoon, news began to leak. A reporter somewhere caught wind that William had been spotted at St. Mary's Hospital. Then someone else reported seeing Meghan near the palace earlier that day. The media storm began. Questions flew. Speculation ran wild. What did it mean? Was this a reconciliation? A publicity stunt? Everyone had theories, but inside room 417 at St. Mary's Hospital, none of that mattered. Archie woke up that evening with clearer eyes. His fever had broken. The doctors were cautiously optimistic. They wanted to keep him under observation. But the immediate danger seemed to be passing. Harry and Meghan sat on one side of the bed. William sat on the other. They weren't hugging. They weren't pretending years of hurt had disappeared. But they were there, together. For Archie, and that was enough. A few days later, Archie was released from the hospital. The test results had come back. It was a rare infection, serious but treatable. With medication and rest, he would recover fully. William visited twice more before they left London. Brief visits, quiet, no cameras, no statements. Just an uncle checking on his nephew, on the last visit. He and Harry stood in the hallway while Meghan packed Archie's things inside the room. "This doesn't fix everything," William said quietly. "I know," Harry replied. "There's still a lot we need to talk about. A lot to work through, I know." William looked at his brother. Really looked at him. "But maybe we can start trying." For them, Harry's eyes filled with tears. "I'd like that." They didn't hug. The wounds were still too fresh. But they shook hands. And in that simple gesture, there was the first glimmer of hope. Back at the palace, Officer Thomas Wright continued his shifts at the East Gate. He never spoke publicly about what happened that day. When reporters tried to corner him, he said nothing. When his supervisors asked for details, he kept them minimal. Some things, he believed, should stay private. But every morning when he took his post, he remembered that rainy November day, the woman in the dark coat, the choice he made. The reminder that sometimes the most important thing you can do is simply help someone who needs it. And Sergeant Patricia Cole, she retired 6 months later, but before she left, she pulled Thomas aside. "What you did that day," she said, "that took courage. Real courage. The kind that matters." Thomas nodded, not quite sure what to say. "The world needs more people like you," Patricia continued. "People who see past the rules to the human being on the other side. Don't ever lose that." As for Meghan and Harry, they returned home with Archie. The media continued to speculate. Some praised the reunion. Others criticized it. Everyone had opinions, but inside their home, away from cameras and commentary, they had something more important. They had their son, healthy and laughing again. And they had the beginning of something they thought they'd lost forever. A bridge back to family, fragile, uncertain, but there sometimes. Healing doesn't come from grand gestures or public statements. Sometimes it comes from a desperate walk through the rain, a guard who chooses compassion, a sergeant who makes a call, a brother who shows up when it matters most. Sometimes it just comes from people choosing to be human, to see past hurt and anger to the thing that matters most: love, family, and a little boy who just needed his family around him when he was scared. That's the story. Not perfect, not tied up in a neat bow, but real and true in the ways that matter. Because sometimes the most powerful moments in life are the quiet ones, the ones that happen away from cameras, the ones where people just choose to do the right thing, even when it's hard. That guard at the gate didn't change the world that rainy morning. He just helped one person, one desperate mother who needed someone to see her, to help her, but maybe that's enough. Maybe that's everything, and if you take one thing from this story, let it be this: compassion costs nothing, but its value is immeasurable. When you have the chance to help someone, even when it's difficult, even when it breaks the rules, sometimes the most important thing you can do is simply choose kindness. Thank you for watching. If this story touched you, please like, share, and subscribe for more powerful, true stories. And remember, in a world that often feels cold and divided, you have the power to be someone's hope. Just like Officer Thomas Wright was that day at the palace gates.